What's up, guys? Michael Montero here, coming to you from the lab that I'm still getting set up. I'm getting some of my articles back there on the wall for Ring Magazine and Boxing Monthly Magazine. Anyway, you guys asked for a rant related to Manny Pacquiao stopping Lucas Matisse, and instantly, last Saturday night or Sunday morning, depending on what part of the world you lived in, it started on social media. And what's funny is I was in New Orleans. I had just covered the Regis Prograis card down there, the top-ranked card on ESPN, in association with Lou DiBella, who represents Prograis. And I was there with Steve Kim and a few other guys, and we went to a hotel afterwards to stream the Pacquiao fight on a laptop. Steve Kim has ESPN Plus, so we beamed it up on that and watched it. We had some drinks, we got some dinner, blah, blah, blah. And we were checking our Twitter, and instantly, boom, we're looking at our phones and we're seeing drugs, back on steroids. Pac-Man must be back on the roids. As if it was ever confirmed that he ever did anything wrong in the first place. Back on roids. I mean, think of the subtext, to the context to what that is. So anyway, I asked you guys on the Neutral Corner this week if you wanted to hear my thoughts on this and me rant a little bit, because I went back and forth on Twitter with some of the usual suspects who get their news from some of these idiotic channels that either race bait or they're nationalistic or whatever it is, and they really are uneducated about the sport, the business behind the business, as I call it. So they're educating ignorant fans, and unfortunately, these fans also have Twitter accounts, and I got to see this bullshit day in and day out, and I can only correct so many of them on Twitter, so here it is. Look, I did a video specific to IVgate years ago, and I followed up an article Thomas Hauser did. I can't remember the exact title, but I think it was Can We Trust USADA? And that was posted on Ring Magazine's site, I believe, in a series, like 2 or 3 article series, or maybe it was 5 parts over a whole week, something like that. But anyway, my video I did was basically a follow-up and giving my thoughts and analysis on Thomas Hauser's article. This probably goes back to 2015. It's probably 3 years old. So guys, if you search my channel, I've talked about this issue before as it relates to Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather and the performance-enhancing drug stuff, because this goes back years. Basically, about a decade ago, when people started talking about Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, rumors started out of Floyd Mayweather's camp in certain media outlets he was attached to. I use quotes when I say media because these aren't the most respected members of the boxing press. In fact, they're more on the fringes of the social media realm of the boxing press. But they do get credentialed to a lot of fights, particularly Mayweather/Heyman events. Not with other people, though. Anyway, they started a rumor that Manny Pacquiao is using performance-enhancing drugs. And through sources they had in the media, they pushed this stuff, okay? And the rumors, if they're pushed long enough on social media and in the fake news hashtag media, they become fact. And here we are a decade later where it's pretty much an accepted fact, quote unquote, with a lot of people, a lot of fans who started watching boxing right around when Floyd turned from pretty boy to Money May. That's pretty much when they started watching boxing, really as casuals. They only watched when Floyd or a guy that Floyd/Al Heyman, vouched for, and an occasional Pacquiao fight, a Canelo fight, something like that. That's pretty much their depth of boxing knowledge and experience. To those guys, they simply just accepted as a fact that Manny Pacquiao is a steroid abuser and Floyd Mayweather was cleaning up the sport because he did USADA testing. They really don't know the background of all that. So I'm not going to go into a million details and do an hour-long video here, guys. I'm just going to tell you straight up. And the reason why I bring Floyd's name up with this Pacquiao stuff is because it really was Floyd and his people that started these rumors. And they weren't the only ones. There was Paulie Malignaggi went in for a long time about performance-enhancing drugs and stuff like that. But as it relates specifically to Floyd and Manny, there is actually more circumstantial and hard evidence linking Floyd Mayweather to possible performance-enhancing drugs use than Manny Pacquiao. There is actually zero evidence at all that links Manny to anything related to drugs, performance-enhancing drugs, prohibited substances, other than the appearance of him changing his body from when he started boxing as a malnourished teenager who had to put weights in his pockets to make weight for his first fight, which I think was like 108 pounds or something, all the way up until into a catchweight title fight, which was complete bullshit. It shouldn't have been for a title against Antonio Margarito, technically at junior middleweight. But that was a crock. That whole title was a crock, and I don't recognize it as one of Manny's title wins. Anyway, his body did change, and there's a lot of speculation as to how and why it changed. By the way, so did Floyd Mayweather's. It changed a lot. Floyd's appearance in the Manny Pacquiao fight, comparing that to just his previous fight before Manny, was quite different. Other guys Manny fought, like Juan Manuel Marquez, there's a cloud of suspicion around them. There was a lot of suspicion because the performance-enhancing drugs testing in boxing during that era was very, very poor. However, by the time Floyd and Manny fought in 2015, VADA was around. VADA had been around for a few years. It wasn't as popular as it is now. There weren't programs like the WBC's Clean Boxing Program and all that quite yet. But VADA was around. And Manny Pacquiao had been using VADA for a year or two prior to fighting Floyd Mayweather. So Manny wanted VADA for the Mayweather fight. Floyd flat out refused to use VADA. He demanded USADA, who him and Al Haymon and several Al Haymon fighters under that umbrella have a very questionable, concerning relationship that goes back years. And if you guys are curious about all the details of that, I recommend Googling Thomas Hauser's article that I mentioned before. Read it. It's a very, very long read, but there's a lot of good information in there. All right, so I recommend, I'm not going to give you guys all that. Do the damn research yourself. Watch the video I posted on my channel a few years ago. I go into more detail. It's maybe half an hour long. But, okay, let me back up here. So, yeah, Manny wants VADA testing. Floyd says no. Now, a lot of you guys out there would say, well, so what? USADA testing is still drug testing. Well, not all drug testing is created equal, particularly with some questionable, concerning relationships that existed on Floyd/Haymon's side with USADA and the business that they had together. I won't get into all the specifics there, but when it comes down to simply testing in boxing, pound for pound, VADA catches a lot more fighters than USADA. And I shouldn't use the word catch. I should use the word returns. I should say they have samples come back with anomalies. They find more anomalies in samples. Whether, I don't want to use the word catch because sometimes these fighters do ingest things accidentally. And after the adjudication process that is discovered. So I don't want to say catch, but they routinely bring back more samples with abnormalities that lead to, positive tests for prohibited substances per capita than USADA does. And this is instantly, right away. In fact, some Haymon fighters started using VADA right when VADA came out, and they immediately popped them. Immediately, these guys tested positive. And several guys, like I want to say Lamont Peterson comes to mind, but there were others. And instantly, they stopped using VADA, and Haymon went back to USADA. And if they did any testing, that's who they worked with. USADA is an inferior product. They make it sound because of their name that they are part of the government or they're like a government agency or anything like that. They're not. They're a private company that is for profit. VADA is non-profit. They have to pay certain people, and they have to pay for the testing and the chain of custody with test samples as it goes to a lab and all that. So they do have to charge for their services. However, none of the officers at VADA are paid. They don't do it for money. They basically break even, and that's what it is. You take the Clean Boxing Program with the WBC. The WBC gives VADA a budget, and VADA performs as much tests as they can on as many fighters as they can with the budget the WBC provides. Once that budget's gone, they stop testing. So they are non-for-profit. USADA is for-profit. Long story short, as it relates to the comparison, and again, go to Thomas Hauser's article or my video talking about the article a few years ago for more info. Floyd paid 6 figures for USADA's services for the Pacquiao fight. 6 figures, I'm talking over $100,000. Whereas VADA would have cost 1/10 of that. It would have been about $10,000 to use VADA for the Pacquiao fight. And it was a superior product that routinely returns more positive test results. So think about this. If you're Floyd Mayweather, and for years you've been saying this dude Pacquiao has been cheating, and I'm not going to fight him because he's using steroids, and you promote that through your friends in the media that you do business with behind closed doors, and they're promoting that narrative for you. You're in the biggest fight of your life. The best drug testing available is 1/10 of the cost of an inferior drug testing source, USADA. Yet, you refuse to do VADA testing and demand USADA. In fact, it's USADA or no fight. Bottom line. Does that make sense to you? Now, all that is, that's not hard evidence or anything like that. So, we can move forward. One thing you guys don't know, a lot of you don't know, and this has been validated. And again, go back to the article where Thomas Hauser in the article posts photos of these test results that I'm about to talk about. Not once, but twice, Floyd Mayweather, from just routine State Athletic Commission urine samples he provided to the commission, returned a low TE ratio, testosterone, epitestosterone. Now, I'm not going to get into the science of all that. Again, guys, do the damn research, and this video would be hours long for me to do so. But basically, for a healthy young male in his 20s and his 30s and his 40s, I'm not even talking about world-class athlete. I'm talking about a regular dude walking around in your neighborhood, or you, yourself, for you to return a low TE ratio in a standard urine sample is a massive red flag. Either that you're doing something as it relates to performance-enhancing drugs, or that you have a major health issue and need to get to a doctor and need to have further testing and analysis done to find out what's going on with you. There could be some kind of hormonal issue, thyroid issue, whatever. There could be some stuff going on. But for a world-class athlete to return a low TE ratio while training or after training for a fight, if they were taken after a fight, I can't remember if they were before a fight or after a fight. Either way, in competition, for a world-class athlete in his prime to return not 1, but 2 low TE ratios for different fight camps is an anomaly of an anomaly. You know what I'm saying? For me to return a test like that, or you to return a test like that, you're in a very, very small percentage. For a world-class athlete to do so, he is in a very small percentage of that very small percentage. It is a massive red flag, particularly with the drugs people were using in that era to cheat. The drugs that guys are using now are a little different. They used to kind of use more designer drugs and stuff. Now it's synthetic. There's different things going on. But in that era, a dead giveaway for doping was a low TE ratio. Floyd returned not 1, but 2 that we know of. It wasn't reported. ESPN didn't jump on it, Sports Center, none of these outlets that normally would take something like that and have a field day with it. CNN would have a special panel talking about it and all this stuff, right? It was not reported through the boxing media at all. These results were obtained through sources, anonymous sources by Thomas Hauser, and he can't really cite the sources in this article, but it was basically leaked. Think of it as WikiLeaks, all right? I'll relate it to the millennials out there. Think of it as WikiLeaks. On WikiLeaks, we found out, because we have actual copies of the test results, that Floyd returned low testosterone, epitestosterone levels twice. Neither was reported through the boxing press, and neither time was there any adjudication of those results or follow-up testing. Now, usually, in most sports, in most instances, if an athlete returns a massive red flag like that in a test, doesn't necessarily test positive for anything, but a massive red flag for masking when you're using something or diluting your urine, there's a follow-up. They're put on an extended or accelerated testing program, a probationary program. We've seen that with fighters that had positive test results in recent years, right? We've seen that with guys like Luis Ortiz, Alexander Povetkin, Berman Stavern. Those are a few I can name off the top of my head. However they ingested whatever they ingested. We've seen where Canelo Alvarez just tested positive for clenbuterol. And the Nevada State Athletic Commission did a thorough investigation. And everything through VADA, because VADA does it the right way, it was reported to all parts of the promotion. Not just the Canelo side, but everybody involved knew about the positive test result, and it was thus released through the media, and everybody knows about it, right? That didn't happen back then. And this wasn't once, but twice. Manny Pacquiao has never once, to our knowledge, returned a low TE ratio. For a guy who supposedly was juicing and using steroids, he's taken plenty of urine tests. Most of his fights were in America during his prime. Usually Las Vegas, but he also fought in Texas. He fought in different markets, right? Even if he wasn't doing blood testing for all those fights, because most commissions don't do that, he was doing routine urine tests, which quite often are done the night of the fight. Like right after the fight, a commission official will go in there with his little cup, breaks the seal, blah, blah, blah. They do their thing and they send it off. Urine samples are very, very cheap to process, so most state commissions use them. And Manny never returned a low TE ratio that we know of. So we know of twice with Floyd. Further, real quickly, I'll touch on IV gate. Floyd Mayweather weighing in for Manny Pacquiao. The Friday before the fight. They weigh in. Both guys are on weight. Floyd, who regularly walks around at about 150 pounds. You guys remember those shows, HBO 24/7 and the show on Showtime, whatever the hell it's called, where during fight camp, he'll roll up to Taco Bell. He'll order a Taco Bell. He'll order a McDonald's, a cheeseburger. He'll get pizza, and he'll brag how he can eat that shit and still make weight. You guys have seen all that stuff for years. It was on all those shows. It was on YouTube. It was on a bunch of interviews he's done with his pals on certain sites and YouTube channels that they hang out and smoke with, whatever. All right, I'm not going to talk about that no more. But you've seen that. You've seen the Taco Bell. You've seen all that. And Floyd walks around at a $150 soaking wet. And dude makes weight easy. 147, not a problem. Yet all of a sudden, for Manny Pacquiao, he's severely dehydrated. And he needs to get an IV. Now, he's not severely dehydrated enough to where he immediately after the weigh-in ran back to the locker room and got an IV right there at the venue and informed the commission and informed USADA and informed Team Pacquiao and informed the media and everybody else. He wasn't that severely dehydrated. He was just severely dehydrated enough where he could talk with some people, do some media interviews right there at the weigh-in, do some social media posting, jump in his whip, drive home, change clothes, and then sit down and have somebody come to his house and administer an IV to him there. That's how severely dehydrated he was. Think about what Danny O'Connor just went through when he was about to fight Jose Carlos Ramirez in Fresno, California. Wound up in the hospital, right? That, my friends, is severely dehydrated. That's not what Floyd was. Anyway, Floyd goes home and gets an IV, which breaks every damn rule you can. The amount of fluids he had put inside of him breaks every rule. That WADA sets the standards and all that. I'm not going to get into all those details. It just so happens that an official from USADA shows up at the crib and catches him red-handed. I believe it was after the fact. They saw the IV bags, the needle, all that. I think Floyd had finished actually doing the IV. And he's busted. What does he do? The fight could be off. What's going on? He asked for a therapeutic use exemption. I'm severely dehydrated. It was a medical emergency. I didn't just need the standard threshold IV. I needed more than twice that. And I know that breaks WADA protocol. Can I get a therapeutic use exemption? By the way, here's $100,000 plus. So what does USADA do? Therapeutic use exemption. By the way, they don't tell the media. They They don't even tell Team Pacquiao this. I don't even know if they told the commission people that day about it. But eventually all this comes out after the fight. So, is any of that hard evidence? The 2-to-E ratio results, that's hard evidence. That's evidence that holds up in court. The IV is circumstantial evidence. It really doesn't prove anything because it's hard to prove intent in the court of law. But there's enough there around Floyd where you could actually get a search warrant and pursue a case if we're taking this and relating it to a case in a court of law. With Manny Pacquiao, you have a guy who started boxing as a malnourished teenager who over years, over a decade, started working and training with world-class trainers, world-class nutrition people, world-class chefs, the most experienced promoter in the sport, top rank, and also grew from a teenager, from a young man in his 20s into a grown man in his 30s, and moved up in weight. So most of us, myself included, I remember when I was in the Marine Corps, I could get down to 177 for fighting or for whatever. I remember I was 177 at 19 years old. So I'm 6'4", and I could get down to 177. Now I'm walking around at 220. So that tells you right there, I weigh almost 50 pounds more than I once weighed. So I know for me, my body has changed, and I've never used any performance-enhancing drug. I don't even take supplements. I drink protein shakes, and that's it. And I'm not a world-class athlete. So Manny Pacquiao, well, to some people it looks suspicious that he gained all this weight and he got more and more muscle. It's really not hard evidence. You could maybe say it's circumstantial evidence, but it also depends, I'm playing devil's advocate. It could just be the kid grew. Now I say all this, and most of you Mayweather guys have already clicked off and thumbs down this video, but I say all this, and I don't know at all if Floyd Mayweather ever did anything wrong. I don't know at all if Manny Pacquiao did or didn't do anything wrong himself. Manny Pacquiao certainly didn't help himself by refusing to go along with Floyd's testing timeline when they were originally starting negotiations. He agreed to testing, but just not Floyd's timeline up until the day of the fight. From what I've heard and what I've been told off the record by people close to that situation, if Manny did agree to it, Floyd would have found a different excuse not to do the fight. The fight was not going to happen until Floyd wanted it to happen. Period. It's the same situation going on right now with these two. This fight ain't going to happen until this guy's promoter, him and his promoter, want it. Just like Canelo and Golovkin and a million other fights we could point to. So it was the same situation then, guys. It was just a different era where the fighters are making so much more money than they deserved. The market was so overinflated, and the people at the top were manipulating the fans and doing all these ridiculous pay-per-views, and they were selling over 1 million pay-per-view buys because there was no other ticket in town, and they were dangling a carrot in front of you that eventually these two guys are going to fight, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. And they found different ways to stall things. Pacquiao's side did as well. It wasn't all on Floyd, but it was more on Floyd, particularly 2012, 2013, 2015. And by then, Pacquiao had been knocked the hell out by Marquez, who, major cloud of suspicion around that guy. So look, I could go around in circles with this. I just wanted to give you guys a quick refresher. A lot of you guys already know this crap. A quick refresher as to why I say there is more circumstantial and even hard evidence linking Floyd to possible cheating than there is Manny. Yet the narrative with a lot of people on social media is that Manny's this cheater. And now, because he knocked out a walking corpse in Lucas Matisse, he must be back on the juice. Mind you, Lucas Matisse, the last time he fought anybody with a pulse, Victor Postol, he was battered, his eye was shattered, and he was stopped. And ultimately, I shouldn't say he quit in that fight because his freaking eye was shattered. I mean, Postol beat the hell out of him. But since that point, and that was 2015, since that point he's fought two, Emmanuel Taylor, who's a B-level guy, and then that Tiwal Karam, that Thai guy, who's a C-level guy. So basically two setup fights to make him look good. He got a title because the WBA is a pathetic pile of shit that will sanction anything. So he got a piece of their welterweight title, and boom, that's an easy target for Manny Pacquiao. And Golden Boy, this whole thing with Lucas Matthysse the second time around was to wiggle his ass into a big, big payday. They did their job. They did their job by Matthysse. But there are at least a dozen fighters at 140 to 147 who would not only beat Lucas Matthysse right now, but dominate him. And even prospects. I mean, even young guys with titles like Regis Prograis, Juan Carlos Ramirez, Josh Taylor, those guys at 140, they would not only beat up Matthysse, they'd knock him out in much more severe fashion than Pacquiao did. Boxing fans, some of them, are just so fickle and look for any excuse they can to bash or criticize a guy they don't like. Now I'm going to say one more thing here, okay? Every star fighter, every big name in the sport should do drug testing. They should set an example, and they should spend the extra 10 grand or whatever it is. It's maybe 20 grand a year to do full year-round testing, but for a specific fight, it might be anywhere from 5 to 10,000. They should do it through VADA because they are the best. They're the least compromised. They're not perfect. They're nowhere near perfect. They could improve, but they are the best and the least compromised. It's like I say all the time, the Nevada State Athletic Commission is a compromised commission. USADA is compromised in certain ways, specifically as it relates to certain platforms in boxing. But every star fighter who's getting 7-figure or more paydays should do testing. And I think Canelo Alvarez, after this clenbuterol scandal, has set the standard by doing year-round testing with VADA. Now, will he be doing that year-round testing in 2019, 2020, 2021? We'll find out. But for now, as of now, he's the only active star in boxing that's doing that. And I know some of you guys out there who don't understand how the clean boxing program works, you'll bring that up. The clean boxing program is not the same thing Canelo Alvarez is doing right now, okay? So I'm not even going to get into that. But I would love to have seen Manny Pacquiao do testing for his fight with Matthysse. I think it's bullshit that he didn't. I think basically it was cheap. He's trying to make money here. He needs money. But do I think he's cheating? Did I see any red flags that he's cheating or doing something wrong? No. Let me give you a little further background on this. Pacquiao did full VADA with Timothy Bradley in their third fight. He dropped him numerous times. He did full VADA with Jesse Vargas in their fight. He dropped him. Did no VADA against Jeff Horn and couldn't put Jeff Horn away and got beat up, mostly because Jeff Horn fought like a wrestler, a WWE fighter at that fight. If that fight wasn't in Australia, he would have been disqualified. And then he doesn't do VADA here, and he does systematically break down and beat up Matthysse. But let's be real, guys. Matthysse quit. Matthysse was looking for a way out. This was not the Matthysse who went through hell against Ruslan Provodnikov. And for some of you out there to act like it was, you're crazy. You're just looking for a way to criticize a dude. If Manny Pacquiao was juicing against Matthysse, but he wasn't juicing against Bradley and Vargas, how the hell did he drop those guys? If he was juicing against Jeff Horn, why couldn't he put them away? You see what I'm saying here, guys? The sequence of events, the things that we've seen over the last couple years as it relates to Manny Pacquiao, doesn't give off any red flags that he's doing something wrong. Does that mean I'm saying for 100% certainty that he isn't or that he never has? No, I'm not saying that. For some of you to have this all or nothing mentality, that's the problem here. I'm not saying all or nothing. I'm just telling you what happened. And I'm telling you that there's no red flags there. And actually, if you look at the last 3, 4, 5 years, there's more red flags around Floyd Mayweather. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, go research those other articles and videos I mentioned. Figure this shit out on your own, guys. Here's the rant video.